Part 3. The Savage Reservation. As they stepped off the plain, the dry, scorching air enveloped them, a stark contrast to the humid, climate-controlled environment they had left behind. The Savage Reservation stretched out before them, a vast expanse of untamed wilderness, teeming with life and untouched by the sterilizing influence of the world state. Bernard and Lenina, clad in their immaculate white uniforms, stood out like beacons of modernity amidst the primitive landscape. The sky above was a deep, foreboding blue, with clouds that seemed to swirl and twist in every direction. The air was alive with the songs of birds and the rustling of leaves, a cacophony of sounds that was both familiar and yet utterly alien. As they made their way through the reservation, the terrain shifted and undulated, like a living, breathing entity. The ground beneath their feet was dry and cracked, parched from the relentless sun that beat down upon it. Their guide, a gruff, weathered man with a face like worn leather, led them through the winding paths and narrow canyons, pointing out various landmarks and features along the way. Bernard and Lenina followed closely, their eyes drinking in the unfamiliar sights and sounds. They had been warned about the savages, told of their primitive ways and unsanitary conditions, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of it all. As they walked, the silence between them grew thicker, like a palpable presence that hung in the air. Bernard's eyes were wide with wonder, his mind reeling from the sheer magnitude of what they were seeing. Lenina, on the other hand, seemed more subdued, her expression a mixture of fascination and revulsion.
She had been conditioned to view the savages as inferior, as less than human, and yet, as she gazed upon their rough-hewn faces and unkempt hair, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity.
The sun beat down upon them, relentless in its ferocity, as they approached the first village. The houses were small and crude, constructed from rough-hewn wood and thatched with dry grasses. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimneys, carrying the scent of burning wood and cooking meat. Bernard and Lenina exchanged a glance, their faces set with anticipation, as they followed their guide into the heart of the village. The savages themselves were a surprise, their faces a map of wrinkles and scars, their bodies lean and wiry from years of hard labor. They moved with a quiet confidence, their eyes gleaming with a fierce inner light as they went about their daily routines. Bernard and Lenina watched, transfixed, as a group of children played in the dust, their laughter and shouts carrying on the wind. An old woman, her face a labyrinth of lines and creases, sat cross-legged on the ground, her hands moving deftly as she wove a basket from thin strips of wood. The air was thick with the smells of cooking and smoke, of sweat and earth. Bernard and Lenina breathed deeply, their senses overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of it all.
They had never experienced anything like this before, never been exposed to such raw, unbridled humanity. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, like standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into the unknown.
As they walked through the village, they began to notice the strange, ritualistic artifacts that adorned the houses and the people themselves. Feathers and beads, bones and stones, all manner of objects that seemed to hold deep significance for the savages. Bernard's eyes lit upon a small, delicate necklace, fashioned from a series of tiny, polished stones. He reached out a hand, his fingers brushing against the smooth surface, and felt a sudden jolt of connection, as if the very essence of the savage's world had been distilled into this small, exquisite object. Lenina, on the other hand, seemed more interested in the people themselves, her eyes roving over the faces and bodies, drinking in the details of their primitive existence. She watched, fascinated as a young woman, her hair long and wild, her eyes flashing with a fierce inner light, worked at a loom, weaving an intricate pattern from threads of colored wool. As the day wore on, Bernard and Lenina found themselves drawn deeper into the heart of the village, their initial trepidation giving way to a growing sense of wonder and awe. They had never felt so alive, so connected to the world around them. The savages, with their primitive ways and unsanitary conditions, had somehow managed to tap into a deep, primal wellspring of humanity, a sense of community and belonging that was utterly foreign to the world state. And yet, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the village, Bernard and Lenina couldn't shake the feeling that they were somehow outsiders, observers in a world that was not their own. They had caught a glimpse of something primal and raw, something that spoke to a deep, unfulfilled longing within themselves. As they prepared to leave, the savages gathering around them, their faces set with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, Bernard and Lenina knew that they would never forget this experience, this journey into the heart of the Savage Reservation.